Is just a signal for SCTV that is broadcasting this evening that with the cameras that we are starting the meeting. So with that, good evening and welcome to the Simsbury Board of Education regular meeting. Today is November 12, 2014. And with that, we have call to order and recognitions.
Great. Thank you, Lydia. We have a few folks here we'd like to recognize this evening. First is Cheryl Patton. Cheryl is here from Henry James. She's part of our great front office team at Henry James. And on an annual basis, we submit to CABE different examples of our communication practices into a CABE Communications Award Committee. And we have an award winner, which is our Henry James newsletter, which Cheryl really helped to revamp. So I am going to kick it to Brian, who's going to talk a little bit about that. I am going to pass around an example of the newsletter for you to take a quick look at, and congratulations, Cheryl.
Thank you.
And Henry James.
Sure. So we're very pleased to have this recognition. We're very proud of Cheryl. Our newsletter is quarterly, so it's really a great way to inform the community of all the goings on at Henry James. And when you look at it, it's not just formatting the information. There's a lot of creativity that goes into the actual design of the newsletter, a lot of the graphics, and just different things that really make it, I think, a really great publication and enjoyable to read, and obviously visually it has a good impact. And so a lot of hard work goes into that publication, so we're very pleased and proud that Cheryl was able to get the recognition for all her work.
I'm busy working on the next one.
Wonderful.
It's probably worth mentioning, so this was actually her freshman effort. So Cheryl hasn't been with us for quite a year. This was our spring newsletter, so it's just really nice to kind of get that recognition her first time out with it. So we're very
And in
proud.
between, with all the kids and everybody, you're right in the front office also,
Right.
trying to pay attention and do this. Very busy.
Multitasking.
Yeah.
Communications, as everybody knows, remains one of our board initiatives and different ways to continue to be effective, and this is one of those ways. So thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you all.
All right.
Cheryl, thank you.
And we welcome Mr. Sullivan back for the second straight meeting, and he is here to introduce
Briefly tonight.
Yeah, just briefly. Two students that are next up in line to be student representatives to our Board of Ed, which is one of the unique things I think we do here in Simsbury that really involves our students and provides us with great feedback about what's going on in the school system. So if you would introduce the students and tell us a little bit about the process would be great.
So, we are on 7 years that we have had a student representative to the Board of Education, starting with Dave Dobkin, who the veterans board members know was the one who pushed it forward and made it happen and was the first student ever to sit on the board. And then since then, we were looking for a method for selecting our student representatives, and about 2 or 3 years in fell into this pattern where we believed that selecting two folks in junior year who could observe your meetings for a year and then be ready by senior year, as Brian is now, to sit at the table and be the board reps was the best kind of way to go. And so that pattern has worked very well. You've had a lot of great board reps, and that continues. This process is getting harder and harder. I know that your own selection to the board, those summer Democratic or Republican caucuses can be tough sometimes. The general election can be a challenge, but we now have had a full 9 students who applied this year, by far the most we've ever had. So the popularity of our student board rep position, the word must be spreading that it's a good gig, and so this was extremely challenging this year. We had a lot of really top-notch students in the junior class.
Right.
We not only do I do the interview process, but our advisor for student council, Kaylee Donovan, participates in that process. And this year, a new wrinkle that we added our assistant superintendents who participate.
And you mean wrinkle in a very flattering way, Mr. Sullivan.
No wrinkles here.
That's right. Choices of words.
Sensitive tonight, Susan?
I knew that's where you were going, in a
So,
positive.
Aaron and Sue actually split the duties and came over. We did the interviews over 3 different days, just so you know. We do ask the students to submit a resume of what they've participated in the community in the high school. They're asked to write a couple of short essays, and then they go through an interview process where we talk to them about their leadership. We talk to them about issues that they are concerned about in the school. We ask them to share experiences where they've been in kind of all adult settings and what they've learned from that. And knowing that you will put them on the spot, we develop a little scenario. This time we put them on the spot about declining enrollment. Here's a picture of the school district. What's your reaction to it? So we had a lot of great students who participated in that. It was hard to choose to, but we had two really outstanding students come through as the selection. So it is my pleasure to introduce Will Pendergast and Maya Chakowski, who are our new representatives to take in the meetings. I have asked them to tell you a little bit about what they do at Simsbury High School and in the community. So who wants to start? We'll go with Maya.
Hi, I'm Maya Winston. I participated in varsity volleyball this year. I'm also active in the music department, do the musical and chorus. And I just love leadership opportunities and trying to impact change. I do that through the Youth Forum, part of the Connecticut Forum, and Student Council back in middle school. And so I'm really excited for this opportunity to make an impact on the school system.
That's great.
Great.
Congratulations.
I'm Will Pendergast. I'm part of the Simsbury swim team and also the crew team, and I'm an active member of Boy Scout Troop 175 out of St. Mary's, so that's where I get most of my leadership skills, and just want to take this opportunity to thank you for letting me work on the board.
Great. Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations. Welcome.
I'm sure that one of the things that happens also in addition to serving as board reps is Ms. Sedone almost always leads them for Day on the Hill come springtime, so hopefully that will happen again. And just really pleased from an administrative standpoint that the board has been so open to this whole concept and really gives a few students a year an opportunity to serve in a capacity most kids don't get, and I hopefully, based on the feedback that you've given me, that it's useful for you too, and so that's our purpose, and really happy that we have two great new reps. So
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Wonderful. Great. Absolutely. And if you're interested, we do have openings for Saturday. It is our Cave Caps annual conference, and we do have the whole day is blocked out for students. So we can talk after the meeting if you're interested. We can arrange to have you come down and participate with other Board of Ed rep students from around the state. So welcome. Glad you're joining us. All right, moving along. Brian. All right. Excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We're on the students. Now's the time for public audience. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the board may do so. Please state your name and address. And seeing none, we will move on now to continue communications. Brian.
All right. So quarter one just officially ended this Friday, or grades closed for quarter one this Friday at the high school. And with that today, we took some time to recognize our junior class who've been achieving at a high level for 9 quarters so far in their Simsbury High School career with National Honor Society inductions that went off very well today. On the other side of the coin, fall sports are coming to an end with the final football game this Friday against, I believe, Newington, but I could be wrong about that.
Glastonbury, I think. Who's the final game now? Is it Newington?
Final game is a week from Friday. Glastonbury
Glastonbury.
is our last opponent. Yeah.
Any updates, Neil? From
I'm going to get you an update on the
I know, I was
Girls
just
Rockers
looking,
playing
trying
right
to, they're playing right now.
I will get Mr. Street's tweet in just a moment.
Absolutely. All right. While we await, we await the tweet. Susan.
All set? Nothing,
Chris.
Lydia.
Nothing
Mike.
tonight, Lydia. Thank you.
Tara.
I had great reports that Veterans Day was well done in all the schools, and that I think a lot of kids had a lot of positive feedback from wearing red, white, and blue and celebrating the veterans and appreciating their American history. It was all good. Happy about that.
Yeah, it all went well. Yes, just a couple of things. Elementary report card conferences are next week, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so that will be happening. In your folder is the pamphlet to our technology conference, which was a huge success. We certainly opened the day with our keynote speaker, John Bergman, who ignited a lot of interest and excitement among teachers in regard to the flipped learning and really the basis of his work and the question that he asks is, how can you capitalize or how can you utilize the face-to-face time that you have with students in a much more productive manner? So there were over 60 presenters that were our teachers that presented, and you can see, I mean, it's fascinating when you open up this whole document, and for John C. Lytwinick to pull this off. All of these sessions were occurring, and teachers just couldn't get enough. They and would love to do it again. Typically, we've done this in March. We did it in November this year, which I think will have much more impact in teachers being able to try out some of the things they learned in the strategies. So I'm meeting with Joncia next week to get to really go through the feedback and see where we go from here. So that was quite a success. And the other professional development opportunity that I never I shared with you, I don't think, is the interdistrict music program that we also held at the high school, which was our music program, our K-12 music program, Farmington and West Hartford.
Great.
And a huge success and great feedback from that as well. So we don't have professional development again until January, so we'll talk about that when it comes. But just great work, and teachers are really energized about the technology and excited to say, what will the next steps be? So we'll keep you posted on that.
Good. Thank you, Erin.
Nothing at this time, Lydia.
Burke?
Yes, just briefly, we did get, I guess we'd call it, preliminary word from the State Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security about the most recent round of school security competitive grant program applications. You may recall that 5 of our schools received monies in the prior round, and this reimbursement grant, I'm happy to have learned that the final 2 schools of our 7 will be eligible to receive funding. It'll be just under $90,000 in total project costs, of which the state reimbursement at 40% would be just about $36,000. So we're waiting. It's going to be about 6 weeks, they said, till we get an official notification.
You said 2 schools? 2 schools?
Yes, 2.
Which of the schools?
It was Latimer and Simsbury High School.
Good.
And the reason for that was, as you may recall, when we did the classroom lock project for the other 5 schools, Latimer and Simsbury High School already had those locks.
That's right.
So
That's right.
we did a
Makes sense.
new round with some other needs.
All right. Well, that's very encouraging news. Great.
Great.
Matt.
Just wanted to add one piece to what Erin talked about with the technology professional development. Lydia, I know you were there and had an opportunity to sit in on a couple sessions. We've talked a lot at the board level, and this board has supported that notion of how important it is to build that collaborative culture, and we've talked a lot about our professional learning communities, which are really our teams of teachers. And we continue to think about different ways to what we call it scale up that collaborative practice and think about those opportunities. And I walked away from this just really feeling good about where we are and even thinking differently, as Erin and I have talked about our professional development. And when you provide teacher choice in professional development and you have teachers really teaching teachers, what that does to the engagement level of everybody involved and giving people tools to walk away that they can implement in short order in the busyness of it all right now for everybody, I think is something we need to continue to think about. And even potentially expanding this in providing opportunities, as we've talked about, for other districts to participate in, maybe something we want to look at. So hats off to everybody, and really, I think, has us all thinking about next steps relative to not just technology PD, but PD in general. So.
Right. And I'll just add on to that too. And not only teachers teaching teachers teaching and presenter teaching board members. I mean, I found it very worthwhile and very interesting. I could have also stayed the whole day. I could have, if it was held another day. It was a lot to consider in terms of attending the different workshops, which were all very, very good. So it was definitely, for me, as a board member, I found it very useful. I learned an awful lot from the presenters and from the teachers, and I would invite board members next year if they have opportunity. And I think also it's important to, as I tell people, that attending something like this is, I find out what's going on in our school system. We talk about it, we read about it, we pass recommended actions about it, we talk about it during budget, but when you're really in the throw of it with teachers and presenters about what's going on in classrooms, whether it's Google Maps or whether it's something else. That really, to me, I felt that, I was right there in the classroom, and I was pleased to be a student and to be able to, acknowledge what they were doing.
I just did want to say also, we did have student presenters.
Yes.
Oh, that's helpful.
Yes.
During the day as well. So it was wonderful to have students teaching the teachers with what they know.
That's right.
And I know Neil wrote a piece to his parent community a little bit about the professional development. I think,
Yes.
it's part of our responsibility, and I plan to follow up a little bit in my November letter to community of talking a little bit more about how we use those professional development hours when students are out of school and teachers are in school, because there is a cost to that. There can be a convenience factor to that to families as well, but that time is so valuable to the development of our staff. So.
It's very, very good. So kudos to all of you and teachers and staff and administrators for for putting on a very, very good conference. And I had just joked during the day especially to administration. I had said, if you would offer this to other districts, and you charge,
We would have had.
They
we
will
would have
come.
had a full
They will
auditorium.
come. So
They would have come. Yeah.
So little revenue maker
We'll talk
there.
about it. Yep.
Yeah, very good. So anyway, and just briefly, as I mentioned before, the Cape Caps Convention is this weekend down the Mystic Marriott, and this is our annual conference. I will be in attendance, and I know several administrators will be in attendance, and we have about 600 attendees attending over the course of the 3 days. Tomorrow is our delegate assembly, and that is the day where we will be looking at resolutions and proposals that we will bring forward that will really be our working documents as we go forward to the next legislative session. So, and a lot of those proposals and resolutions are governance and finance and other areas. And then Friday, of course, will be all our speakers. The governor will also be coming, and Commissioner Pryor will also be attending. And Saturdays, I said, will be a great student forum. So, so it's not too late for my colleagues if you're interested in attending and coming. But we are looking for a great turnout, and the weather is holding up. So that's it for me. All right, we will move on now to recommended actions.
Or at halftime, by the way.
No,
I'm sorry,
for
what is it?
halftime.
I'm sorry.
I just saw
For
that.
girls soccer, Simsbury Glastonbury winner goes to the state championship game.
Wow.
So, no
All
score
righty.
at half.
Great, great. All right, Exhibit 1 on recommended actions is approval of minutes of October 28th, 2014. And do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? I will abstain. All righty, we are now moving on to Exhibit 2, approval of the 2014 Board of Education meeting schedule. And as you have before you, the meeting dates starting from January through December. And in the past, we had just reviewed the dates to make sure that there were no conflict with any vacations or other dates. But I believe, Katie, we're squared away with that?
Well, it's the second and fourth.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Second and fourth.
Matt, any Wednesday night meetings you want to highlight?
Yeah, we're not doing that anymore.
We're not looking up down
You're just happy because you were in New York yesterday.
That's all right. Even board members are allowed to, we're such
Creatures of
habit. And, we do show up even when there isn't a meeting, so.
We're dedicated.
We are here. All right, do you hear a motion?
So move.
Second? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. We are now on to Exhibit 3, and this is very easy. This is cancellation of our November 25th meeting, and as in past practice, I am recommending the cancellation of that meeting due to Thanksgiving 2 days later. We have done that in the past, so we will, again, continue with this practice. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? And we will continue with any agenda items for the December 9th meeting on that.
Which is where we rescheduled Mr. Street for us.
Absolutely.
So we're all set.
Very good. All right, with that being said, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. We are now on to Exhibit 4, Information Reports, the Henry James Memorial School Academic Report.
All right, and we will invite Mr. White to the table. And similar format to Neil's report. In last meeting, Brian's going to give an overview of the work that's going on at Henry James and some of the exciting things and really tell the story of his time spent there as a leader. So I'll kick this to Aaron. I don't know if you have anything else you want to talk about.
I think what I was able to do back in September is just to give you some high-level overview of some of the data points. Again, just reminding you that we don't have that standardized assessment data that we've had in the past. But I think Brian tonight has a pretty detailed story to tell about the work that's going on, inclusive of some data points, but also teacher work and budget themes and ideas around the ongoing work at Henry James. So I'll kick it right to Brian then.
Right.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. So good evening, everybody, and it's nice to have the opportunity to be here just to share a little bit about progress at Henry James. So with the first slide, and I think an appropriate beginning to our presentation, is just to talk a little bit about the mission statement of Henry James. Typically when we talk about the mission statement with our students, with our parents, with the community, we frame it as the 3 C's, or connections, challenge, and character. And we feel that this really does represent the work that we do there at the middle school. In terms of connections, we talk about both interpersonal and curricular connections. That's a very important part of what we do. When you think about the importance of relationships, relationships between teachers and students, the connections that students have with our school community, I think it's a big part of what really makes us a great middle school. We'll be talking more about that as a theme throughout the program this evening. In terms of challenge, we talk a little bit about the rigor of our academic program. You know, we really are a model middle school in that I think we really embrace the philosophy of middle level instruction. We look at all aspects of the student experience there. And so while we certainly talk about the rigor of our program in terms of academics, we also talk about challenging students to grow in terms of their social and emotional development and their physical development as well. And then, of course, character education is a big part of what we do as well. And so we talk a lot about the HJ way, which many of you are familiar with, and that's something that we really do, I think, bring to life every day with our students. It's very alive in the conversations we have with students about our expectations, behaviorally, academically, in the classroom, around the building, and really in all school-related activities. So just a few indicators of success that we'd like to share this evening. We actually have quite a bit to be proud of. We're very proud of our most recent science CMT scores. And as you may recall, this is really the one standardized test that we currently have as a measure until the SBAC tests start to provide us with some different types of information. The science CMT continues to be important for us because it provides really a continuous measure of where our achievement has been on this state test, and we've actually done very well. We were number 1 in the DIRG this year. We were actually number 2 overall in the state, and we have some more data to share about that. But what's equally impressive is the fact that we've done so well consistently over time. We have the highest average score in the DIRG for the past 3 years at 89.1%, the highest average score for the past 5 years at 88.2%. And a slide that we'll show you in just a few moments that's very impressive is we've had continuous growth in our advanced band. And so while we often talk about performance at or above goal, I think it's very significant to point out that we've actually seen growth in that advanced band from 22 to 44% over a 5-year period of time, which is actually very impressive. A lot of the work of our science department really focuses on inquiry and the inquiry process. And so we've done a lot of work in the area of reading and writing in science, which we'll also be talking more about. But really that emphasis on inquiry and really getting at the critical thinking with our students is really a big part of what we do instructionally in science. And I think that's a big factor that you see in these scores. So this is just another representation of some of that data. You can see that data in comparison with other towns, some in our DIRG. Many of those are in DIRG A as well. At 90.6%, you see Darien at 89.8, Easton at 89.3, and several other towns as well. Many of those towns, again, are in DIRG A. And so even when compared with DIRG A schools, we actually outperformed all of those DIRG A schools this year. Again, just another view. This is looking at the percentage of students at or above goal, and this was for this year's results. You can see we were only behind Farmington. They were the top in the state at 92%, and we were right behind them at 90.6. So, again, very proud of that performance, and outperforming all Durgay towns as well. So this is a slide I'd like to take a little bit of time with. Again, as impressive as those overall results are, I think what really tells the story of some of our success in science is this slide right here. You can see a steady growth in students who are performing in the advanced band, which is very important, and you can see that growth over time. The blue shows you the number of students in the advanced bandwidth, so we're very, very pleased with those results. So just to switch gears a little bit, the next slide shows the degrees of reading power. Now, one of the things that we've done to monitor student performance at Henry James, and particularly in the absence of the CMT, is we've identified other measures. The DRP, or degrees of reading power test, is important to us because it is a component of the former CMT. And so what's interesting about these scores is it does give us some basis for comparison when we look at students as a cohort group. It also allows us to do year-to-year comparisons with our students going back over a period of time. And so just a quick look at this slide, you can see in 2014 our grade 8 students, 93% were at or above goal. In grade 7, 88.9% were at or above goal. Now, in the case of our grade 7 students, that is a drop from 2013. In 2013, you can see we're at 97%. Some of the things that we've done to address that and to continue to address that is we've really expanded our staff development in the area of reading instruction outside of English. And so while traditionally we've done a lot of professional development with our ELA teachers, through the staff development program with Columbia University's Teachers College, we've actually expanded a lot of reading instruction training for our teachers both in science and in social studies, and that's been a very important part of our work. You probably heard a little bit of Mr. Sullivan's presentation about the closed reading strategies that the high school is focusing on. We're also focusing on that work at Henry James. Although that area of reading is not a stated goal of the school, it's been an important part of our work that's really complemented our writing efforts. And so we continue to look at the way we're infusing nonfiction reading in all academic areas, and we continue to look for ways to provide our staff with training around literacy instruction. But overall, those scores are still very strong. We're still very pleased with those results, and obviously we continue to look for ways to improve what we do. So our area of focus for 2014 and 15, we continue to work around implementing the Common Core state standards. We've actually done a significant amount of work in this regard over the past several years. We're actually very well positioned. Simsbury, I would say, was definitely ahead of the curve in their approach to looking at the Common Core state standards, understanding not only those standards from a curriculum standpoint, but also the instructional implications of what those look like in practice. And so our efforts have been ongoing over a period of time. It continues to be an area of focus for us, and we're really getting into a point with the work where a lot of the initial shifts in curriculum have occurred, and so teachers have been working very hard over the past several years to make some of those shifts, and we're in a place now where things are settling down a little bit in terms of curricular change and some of those shifts, and so that's really allowed us to focus on the instructional aspects of what that looks like in practice. In terms of writing, this is the second year at Henry James that writing has been a school-wide focus. One aspect of writing in the Common Core is that it actually breaks out writing into 3 different areas, as you can see, narrative, argument, and information writing. The approach that we've taken to writing at Henry James is to essentially house each of those types of writings in a content area. And so while ELA leads the charge for all 3 types of writing, they focus on narrative, as an emphasis. In social studies, argument writing is emphasized, and in science, information writing. What this has allowed us to do is really tailor the instruction around writing in each of those content areas to ensure that each area is being supported across the school. Last year, our work was really centered around defining an expectation and a standard for what writing looks like at the middle level. And the outcome of that work was the development of school-wide rubrics, which were employed last year. This year, our focus continues to be implementing those rubrics and helping teachers better understand how to apply those rubrics when looking at student writing. We've also done a lot of work already this year with Columbia Teachers College around some of the pre-instruction that occurs in the classroom, setting students up to be successful with writing. We talked a little bit about our work with nonfiction reading, and that's actually a part of that work as well.
Right, before you go any further,
Sure.
for the publics that are viewing this on the PowerPoint, ELA stands for?
English Language Arts.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Doan. The last area of focus for this year is just a continued implementation of the teacher evaluation system with an emphasis on refining SLOs. I think that's pretty common across the district. We're certainly engaged in that work at Henry James as well. We're moving into year 2 of that new evaluation model, and so we've learned a lot in the first year of implementation. We're really looking at how we define the goals that teachers are setting for their students and for themselves. We think that's a very important part of this work. The better we're able to define those goals and measure those goals, really the more effective this particular model becomes. And so that's really where we've really put a lot of our energies this year, working with our department supervisors, working with our teachers to better understand how to craft those goals and objectives.
And for clarification, SLOs are student learning outcomes.
Student learning outcomes, yes.
We'll be better at that.
Yeah, I know the alphabet soup of
Yeah, and
education, right?
Especially when it's about the students, we like to make sure that's
Sure, no, and thank you very much. So,
We have our own education jargon, but
Yeah.
for the general public.
Sure,
so
sure.
they understand, gives them a little better idea of what we're talking about.
Yeah, and so to that point, when we talk about student learning outcomes, as the name suggests, it's really just looking at defining what those measures are for students. So oftentimes, for example, we talked about science this evening. We may define an SLO around improved science scores, for example, and so we would look to see how our students perform on that science test. We'd want to know more about what that performance looked like, areas of strength, areas of needed growth. And using that information, we would develop goals to try to improve. And so that's really the essence of what that's all about. So the next slide just talks a little bit about school culture at Henry James. We're very fortunate to have a really good culture there. Our faculty is really fantastic at developing a real sense of community for our students, and that's something that, going into my 3rd year as principal there, I continue to be very impressed with. I think we have a very welcoming school for kids. We work very hard to create a very positive environment for all of our students, and I think that shows just walking around the building. It's really part of what makes it a special place. I mean, we're obviously very proud of our high-performing students when it comes to academic achievement, but the fact that our school really does foster those connections that I spoke about in our mission statement, it really rings true, and I think that's evident when you walk around the halls every day. The HJWay, as I mentioned earlier, that's really at the heart of our character ed program. It's really more thematic in many ways than an actual program. You can see the 5 tenets there in front of you: being respectful, kind, responsible, fair, and trustworthy. It's really at the heart of our work with kids regarding behavioral expectations. We always start off the school year by referencing the HJWay and talking a lot with our students about what that means, what it means to be a student at Henry James, the importance of abiding by the HJWay, whether you're in school or not. And that really does become a theme throughout the year. When our teams have assemblies with their students, when, as administration, we pull the kids together from time to talk about different things as a school, this really is kind of not only the reference point we have, but kind of the foundation for a lot of our work and conversations with students around those expectations. So it's a big part of what it means to be a student at Henry James. So this year we're going to be engaging in the process of revising the mission statement. This was work that we initiated last year, and we really wanted to make sure we were doing this sort of in lockstep with the district. And so it makes sense for us now that the district has come out with its new vision statement that we take a look at our own and make sure that we're in alignment. And while we anticipate continuing with connections, challenge, and character, we're certainly going to look at each of those 3 things and look at how they're phrased. And we want to make sure that we capture a document that's not only aligned with the district, but is truly representative of what we believe as a faculty about the nature of the work we do and really what our school is all about. And so I'm looking forward to this work. I think it's very meaningful work. I think it's important work. And we'll be taking steps throughout the year to work through that document, to solicit feedback from all stakeholders, and hopefully come up with something that, again, is really representative of who we are as a school. Continued focus on social and emotional security. As you may recall from last year, we did a significant amount of work around social media instruction for students. This year, we're going to continue with some of those themes. We're going to continue with what we called our Parent Forum series, which was sponsored by our PTC. We offered a number of programs last year for parents. A lot of those were based on social media and other topics pertaining to parenting middle-level students. This year, we're very pleased to be offering that series again. We're in the process of actually solidifying some guest speakers throughout the year, and many of the speakers we had last year we anticipate returning. So minimally, we'll have one program focused on social media for parents, and we also anticipate some other programming as well. So that was a success last year, and we're very pleased to be offering that again this year.
Pretty well attended, Brian?
They were. Typically, I would say we had 3 programs between 40 and 50 a piece, and those were even on some evenings where we may have been in competition with other things. And so fairly well attended and very well received by the people who were there.
Great.
Following that, are the presenters or the forums, are they from the parents questioning or asking for particular speakers or particular topics, or is this coming from staff driven? Or
it was really a lot of parent, and in the case of last year, a lot of this came about. We had addressed some social media concerns over the summer, and so part of our response to those concerns was to have some workshops for parents to come into the school to talk about the issues, the questions they had about social media and teens. That's really what drove it last year. We had the opportunity after our first speaker to really just kind of do a quick poll of the room and talk to a number of parents on PTC about the types of things they wanted to see. And so from that feedback, we were able to kind of program the other topics. Because they were so well received and we think they're still very relevant, we want to replicate some of those same workshops this year for folks, particularly around social media. And then any feedback we get, obviously, we'll take into account when planning forward. So.
Good.
That's a trick you have too with with the 7th grade parents who it's their oldest. That's always new information.
Right.
So
That's right.
you can't just set it aside because you do have that constant.
Yeah, that's right. That's
When
right.
the elementary report happens at our next meeting, you'll hear that they're working collectively as well to provide some developmentally appropriate conversations with parents as a elementary team. And so I think this is really, it's a very supportive way in which to give parents information at various times within their developmental stages. So, but very well attended. And even today, elementary principals talking about the fact that they anticipate a pretty big crowd because it's dipping deep lower into younger ages.
True.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about the social media, I mean, not only do you have the turnover in our parents every year, but it's remarkable how the technology changes. I mean, we're constantly trying to stay ahead of it, and so although a lot of the themes remain the same year to year, it's remarkable as different websites emerge, as different apps emerge. It's always a challenge to stay ahead of the curve and really be aware of what's out there. And so for that reason alone, just having a similar program year after year, especially in this day and age, is very useful for folks and for us as a school. So our next section just deals a little bit with teaching and learning supports. We've done a lot of work in the past couple of years to really bolster these supports school-wide, and so similar to expanding the work of Teachers College from ELA to Science and Social Studies, we've taken other steps to ensure that a lot of the instruction for staff and staff development is occurring really throughout the building and really in support of our school-wide work. I spoke a little bit already about our work around writing instruction. That'll continue. One of the things we developed last year to really implement our writing efforts was a writing committee. And this has been I think, a very successful approach for us. We've really been able to tap a lot of in-house expertise. We have some very talented people at Henry James. And so we have members from our reading staff, department supervisors, our librarian, our instructional coach, and others who sit on this panel and really is the driving force behind a lot of not only the instructional efforts, but some of our in-house staff PD around supporting teachers to engage in this work in the classroom. So we feel that's been a great success. Again, the fact that it's homegrown is even better. We're able to take a lot of the work that we've seen around Common Core and make it relevant for us at Henry James and figure out what that work should look like with our students in our school. So that's gone very well, and we'll continue with that this year. I spoke a little bit already to you about the school-wide rubrics. That's also some very good work that we're essentially in the fine-tuning stages this year. We've gone through a few different versions of those last year, and I think we've had a chance to really put them into practice, find out what works and what doesn't, and really come up with some pretty good documents that are pretty user-friendly for all of our teachers. Developing teacher resources to aid in the implementation of writing. I would say our instructional coach has been a tremendous force at the center of that. In addition to having a school-wide writing committee, the fact that we were able to invite teachers to really participate in this work and really support them to do it, and particularly for teachers who outside of English might not be first and foremost writing teachers. I mean, people who are teachers of history or teachers of science might not always have the same comfort level as an English teacher attempting writing instruction, but because we've been able to provide people with embedded PD, to have those co-teaching opportunities, to really give them the support in the classroom to do the work, has really been at the heart of the success of this effort. So there's a slide on Columbia University, and that's just a pretty good graphic representation of what that looks like when we talk about that cycle of professional development. You can see that reading and writing are the heart of that work with Columbia. What we have represented there in the inner circle is social studies, ELA, and science, but also all content areas. In year one of this work, we really focused on those core academic areas where writing was most common. That seemed like a pretty common sense approach for us, especially initiating the work. Now that we have good momentum in those areas, we're really looking to expand out into other areas, and I've been very pleased to see teachers in all content areas, even some areas that would be considered non-traditional when you think of writing, like family and consumer science and tech ed. Even the math department has really embraced this work and is really starting to do some really creative things with it. So we're very pleased to see that take hold. And ultimately, our goal is to make sure that we have a common expectation for writing across the building, and that when teachers are instructing students in writing, that they're really using common language. That the language around instruction is the same. When they're providing students with feedback on their writing, it's consistent, so that we're able to positively reinforce that, whether students in an English classroom or a tech ed classroom or anywhere else. So some instructional supports. I talked a little bit about how we've supported teachers to engage in this work, and I think that's been a really important part of what we've been able to do. Our instructional coach in ELA has been very successful. We're very pleased to see that work continue into year two. This position's really allowed us to leverage this work in a very good way. We obviously have a supervisor structure at Henry James, which is also an important part of this work. But the instructional coach, as a supplement to the efforts of our supervisors, has made a tremendous difference in being able to support teachers to move forward with this instruction. Co-teaching is really another thing I'd like to highlight. We've really been able to expand our efforts co-teaching. Whenever you have two teachers in a classroom working in concert, I think students win. We're now in our third year of co-teaching in both social studies and science with our reading department. We have a reading teacher who co-teaches with a social studies classroom and one with a science classroom. This year we've also expanded our co-teaching efforts into our special education department. So in some instances I have a special education teacher who will co-teach a reading class. I also have some special education teachers who've been available to co-teach in other classes like English, for instance. So we continue to look for ways to create those arrangements in our schedule. When we're able to do that well, we think it's pretty powerful, and that's definitely a direction we're going to continue in. Mr. Curtis spoke a little bit about professional learning communities this evening, also an important part of what we do as a middle school. When you consider the middle school model and the team structure, so much of what we do because of who we are as a middle school really lends itself to this work. One of the things we're doing this year to really, I would use the word leverage again, the work of PLCs is this practice of peer visitation. We're creating opportunities for teachers to not only work collaboratively in their department areas, but also get out into other classrooms and really see what best practice looks like at Henry James. So we're very excited about this work. We think it holds a great deal of potential. We're just in the beginning stages of it. But again, a really good opportunity to showcase best practice, to encourage collaboration around what that looks like, and just really encourage people to get out there and see some of the great things that go on every day in classrooms outside of their own. So prepared for success at Simsbury High School. when we talk publicly about our achievement, we often do so in the context of high school readiness. When you look at our school goal work, the way that it's framed out and defined, our goal, simply put, is to make sure students are well prepared for Simsbury High School, which, of course, is very rigorous and academically very competitive. And so we have the task of preparing our students to do well at a very good high school. And we work very hard to do that. Some of the work that we've been engaged in to monitor how well our students are doing is in the area of assessment. And so what you have there in front of you kind of shows at a glimpse over time, year after year, the steps we've taken to really develop some assessments that we feel are a pretty good measure of student success in all content areas. As you can see, in 2009 and 2010, that work was initiated around defining course ELOs. Those are essential learning outcomes. And essential learning outcomes are essentially what students should know or be able to do.
He's a quick study.
Very good.
And so that was an important first step. And really being thoughtful about, for example, at the end of grade 8 science, what should students really be able to know? And although that sounds like a pretty simple statement, there's a lot of thought that goes into that when you take into account the scope and sequence of a curriculum, looking at what's taught and how it's taught. And so that work was really the jumping off point for our current assessment model. In 2010, we developed end-of-course assessments, or EOCAs. Those are administered at the end of the year and really are an assessment of how students have done over the course of the year relative to those essential learning outcomes. In 2012, we developed benchmark assessments, and these were complements to the end-of-course assessments. And so with those sort of anchor assessments in place at the end of the year, we knew it was important to be monitoring the progress of our students relative to those standards. And so the purpose of the benchmark assessment is on a quarterly basis to just monitor how well students are doing relative to course ELOs. They provide our teachers with real-time data, so that if there is a need to shift the focus, to change instruction, they have the information they need to do that, to ensure that by the end of the year, students have what they need to know. Last year, we were in the process of refining those assessments. We put a significant amount of work into the creation of those in 2012. In 2013, we spent a lot of time, again, fine-tuning those assessments and really tailoring them to meet our current need. This year, that work continues. I mentioned earlier in the program that we've really gone through a lot of shifts, I would say, and it looks a little different in each content area, but as we've made some changes in response to the requirements of Common Core, some of our curriculum have changed, and some more than others. And so because of that, we're at a stage now, 5 years later, where we're revisiting course ELOs. We want to make sure that our learning outcomes are currently aligned with what the curricula looks like. And so that's where a lot of our work will be this year. Again, just ensuring alignment between what we teach and how we teach it so that we can appropriately measure it.
Hey, Brian, can I ask a question around that?
Sure.
I'm thinking on the curriculum committee about the beginning of 2012. We've gotten some feedback from a couple teachers at the middle school, teachers at the high school, as well as a few parents that in particular the math integration wasn't just as smooth as it could be. So could you speak about this work that's occurred and where you feel that stands today? If we were to go back to those same people and get some feedback, what would we be hearing at this point?
Well, I think there's definitely been some improvements since that time. I think, again, it's been a process of change. And so working through the expectations and the requirements of the newer standards, looking at what was taught and how it was taught, the math folks in particular have put a lot of time into looking at the sequencing of units, when concepts are taught. And so I would say a couple years later, there's been a significant amount of work done. Mm-hmm. Our current math supervisor, who's moving into her second year, I know has done a significant amount of work creating units last year in both grades 7 and 8, working towards that alignment. And so I would say we're in a much better place. I think there still is some work that needs to be done. In many ways, it's always ongoing. But again, in terms of that integration piece and even looking at 6 to 7, 7 to 8, we've done a great deal of work, and I think we're in a much better spot.
Right. Thanks.
Sure. So here we have our strategic plan and some focus areas. I mentioned this notion of high school readiness or preparedness for high school. That's really where we fall, and it's kind of an interesting graphic. It just shows you that continuum ranging from elementary schools, of course, all the way up through Simsbury High, where we're obviously very interested in college and career readiness. In the middle school, again, our job is really to prepare kids well to go on to Simsbury High and excel.
So I think this was one point. Yesterday I had the opportunity to meet with the department supervisors, a larger group at the middle school, and shared with them a little bit of the story that Neil shared with you at the last board meeting. But the fact that, you know, the middle school's in the middle, they're contributing to the work that's happening. It's not just the work that occurs at the high school in grades 9 through 12. And they were excited to hear that story, and they're part of it, and likewise the elementary teachers are part of it. This is a K-12 continuum, and their work of focusing and getting students ready and prepared for the high school is really solid and coming along. So that was a good story to tell.
So moving forward, you know, in sort of in the theme of assessment, so we have a lot of really good internal measures that we use when evaluating student progress. We also have some standardized measures that we'll be employing this year. For the first time, we administered an assessment called Ready Step. It's a College Board product. This particular assessment, in many ways, is a scaled-down version of a PSAT. And it's administered in grade 8. And what's really great about this particular assessment is it is really designed to give us a measure of high school readiness, which is right in line with how we define our goals. As you can see there, it's a test that measures in the areas of reading, mathematics, and writing. So we have a few more slides where we'll be talking more in depth about that. We'll also be continuing with the DRP, which we administer both in the fall and the spring. So this slide here just shows the college readiness pathway. It shows the Ready Step assessment being administered in grade 8, and you can see the steps leading up to SAT. In the same fashion that a PSAT provides some, I would say, good predictable data about the potential for SAT performance, in the same fashion, Ready Step provides us with similar data about student performance on PSAT. So why
You administered that this year?
we have.
How did that go?
So we administered back in October. In fact, we're expecting to be receiving the results shortly, actually, I think before December even. So we're very interested to see. It was about a 2-hour, 45-minute administration.
All in one sitting?
All in one sitting. And so there were breaks in between. It wasn't a continuous test. But they were essentially 45-minute sections with some breaks in between. 45 minutes for math, 45 for reading, 45 for writing. And so we spread that out over the course of a morning. We had a special schedule for it for our grade 8 students. So we're anxious to get the results. I mean, it's pretty...
Handle that kind of environment for the first time.
You know, I think they did a pretty good job. It was definitely rigorous, you know, to sit and attend to a task for that length of time for anybody for just about anything, I think could be challenging. But, you know, our kids really do handle themselves well, and, you know, they took it very seriously. As they always do. It was very obvious that kids wanted to do well, and so we saw a high level of focus. So again, we're excited to get the results back. It's going to be very informative to see how our kids do. This is a national measure, and so what we like about this is it does give us some good comparative data to see how our students do relative to comparable districts, not just here in Connecticut, but across the country. So again, first time out with this test. It'll be very interesting to get the results, and I think we'll be able to go from there. So we should know hopefully by December. So our next section just speaks a little bit about the extracurricular opportunities, and this is probably one of my favorite things to talk about our incoming students with every year. I mean, our message to our incoming students, starting all the way back to when they're 6th graders, we actually start our process of transition late February, early March. We're going out to the elementary schools and really trying to get the kids excited about coming to middle school and everything we offer at Henry James, and a big part of those conversations is always around getting involved. And I think one of the really great things about our school is the extensive after-school offerings. We quite literally have something for everyone. And what we tell our students is if we don't have an offering that appeals to you, or if there's something that you're really interested in that we don't offer, we do have a process by which students can actually propose clubs and activities, and they do. This year, for example, we actually have a software programming club, which is new for us. We had a new student to our school express interest and had a few friends with a similar interest, and we found a club advisor, and we were able to get that off the ground for those students. And so it's a big part of student life at Henry James. We have a very active after-school program. As you can see, 76% of our kids are involved in at least one different activity, and that ranges from music to intramurals to any number of clubs and activities in between. So a big part of our middle school, something we're very proud of, and we're glad we can offer these opportunities for our students. So just in summary, again, we just really continue to emphasize that strong professional culture of continuous improvement in terms of the staff development work I've talked about this evening, in terms of our work with PLCs. It's something that we continue to emphasize and really look to grow. Collaborative professional environment and professional learning communities, again, a little repetitive, but we did speak about peer visitations, and we're very excited about that work this year. We think it really is going to take the work of our PLCs to the next level, and we're excited to be engaging teachers in that work. Data-driven decision-making, we talk about the use of data utilized to determine best instructional approaches for all students. The various assessments I spoke about this evening are a big part of that work. When teachers come together in PLCs, they're looking at student work, they're discussing student achievement data. That really informs our practice around making good instructional choices. Ongoing department-based curricular vision efforts. We spoke a little bit about Common Core. I think we're reaching a point in that work now, several years in, where things are settling down a little bit. I think that sense of change relative to curriculum. So much work has been done over time that we're, I think, reaching a point where things are really settling in, which is a great feeling. And it's taken a number of years to get there. Creation, administration, and refinement of assessments. Again, we continue to look at our assessment practice. Having good quality internal assessment measures is particularly important for us at the middle school. Comparatively, when you looked at the high school presentation, there's a number of standardized measures they continue to have to look at their progress year to year. For us at the middle school, for so many years, it was really the CMT. And so in the absence of that data, we've really had to look at our own inside practices to make sure that the measures we're using are very informative for our teachers and our students. And of course, it's caused us to look at other potential measures, such as the Ready Step, so that we have a good number of data points to look at to better understand the needs of our school and where we should be focusing. So just a couple things regarding budget preview. Of course, we're very much into the season here. One of the things I wanted to talk about with you this evening is class size at Henry James. Back in October, I obviously had the opportunity to give an October enrollment report. At that time, we spoke a little bit about the unexpected class sizes at Henry James this year. We had made some staffing decisions last year to increase efficiencies at the middle school when it comes to staffing. We knew that the class sizes this year were going to be somewhat larger than what we had seen over the past, I would say, few years anyway. And over the summer, we had a fairly large number of students enroll and register, and so that wasn't anticipated. I believe that number was about 42. And although we had approximately 18 students withdraw, it still presented us with an unexpected influx of students. A lot of those students were registered in 8th grade, and so when you look at our current 8th grade classrooms, they certainly are larger than anticipated. And although mostly within board guidelines, as we discussed back in October, it really has created some unanticipated demands for our teachers, and our teachers have expressed that. So that's an area that we continue to look at. It's important for us to get that right. We've had a lot of conversations at Henry James about how to, best support our teachers and looking at class size for this year. And although we don't anticipate that trend of very large classes to continue, it did present us with some unanticipated challenges this year. And so we're working through those currently, and obviously we're keeping an eye on that relative to our budget planning for this coming year. Another theme you're going to see in the budget this year is regarding our transition programs, and in particular special education. We're really taking a close look at our program And we're just thinking a lot about what that transition looks like for students coming out of the elementary schools, students with various learning needs, and how we're currently programmed to support those needs at Henry James. And so we're taking a very close look at those programs this year. I do anticipate the possibility of some staffing requests in this area. We want to make sure that we're providing the best possible programming and supports for all of our students. And so this area will be another area that for us I think will be a pretty big budget theme this year.
Support. Brian, can I just
yes.
ask around, because I'm really interested in that area.
Sure.
What are some of the areas you're thinking of that you're going to potentially need some more resources with special needs?
Sure. So we're looking at a few areas. One of the areas that we're looking at is, the current caseloads of our special educators, and we're looking at how we're currently configured in terms of our staffing. And so we're very interested in looking at the number of special educators per team. And that's a somewhat different model than what we currently have. And so that's something of interest to us. We're also keeping a close eye on, the Ready, Set, Go program here in town, and we're looking at trends over time, how we've been able to respond to those trends at the middle school, and that's another area that's definitely of interest to us. We're also interested in looking at, the benefit of when you have a special education teacher, for example, in a co-teaching arrangement, which I spoke about earlier. I think it's always a win when you have two teachers in a classroom, and so we're looking at different staffing models that may increase our ability to have some of those co-teaching arrangements where you could have multiple teachers in a classroom at one time as another way of servicing the needs of all of our kids. And so I would say those are probably the areas that we're most interested in at this time.
Thanks.
Sure. Really the next bullet around support systems for students, academic and behavioral, is really an extension of that second bullet in many ways, really looking at how we meet the needs of all of our students. One of the things we were able to create last year was an academic support center at Henry James as part of our tiered intervention process. We're looking to expand that appropriately this year to just continue to increase some of those various tiered interventions for students at Henry James. Professional development and curriculum development, that's an area we always look at. We spoke a lot about our relationship with Teachers College this evening. That will continue to be an area that we're very interested in pursuing, and also expanding some of that work into areas outside of just ELA, science and social studies, but possibly to include others as well. 5-year planning efforts. Aaron mentioned a meeting with our supervisors just the other day. One of the things that we're engaging our supervisors in this year is really making some pretty good projections over a 5-year period of time to better anticipate not only the ongoing needs, but also where we want to continue to grow and expand our programming. And so we're really taking the time this year, sort of in the context of this budget season, but obviously with a forward look, to see where do we want to be in 5 years? What does that look like? Looking at programming, looking at staffing, really looking at all of it. We understand that we're in this period of change relative to enrollment, that things will continue to change for us at the middle school, and so we want to start to really anticipate what Henry James is going to look like 5 years from now and how we anticipate getting there, so we can start to make some smart decisions now and continue to make good decisions moving forward in anticipation of those changing needs. The last theme regarding budget is really facility improvements at Henry James. Mr. LeClaire and I have been spending a lot of time together this year with our current renovation project and office relocation, which we're very excited about at Henry James. And so we're actually thrilled.
Thrilled.
So just really, really excited to see that work moving forward, and it's really been great to have the opportunity to sit down and see some of these ideas start to get sketched out on paper with our architect team, to really start to envision what's possible and really start to see change start to happen there. I think it is overdue in many ways, and I think we're all very excited at Henry James to see some of these plans come to fruition. So that's a very exciting topic for us. We're very pleased. There's obvious security benefits to the office project, but when you get into the first floor renovations and some of the locker replacement, that's just it's going to make a huge difference for the school. So just in conclusion, areas of focus ongoing. Talked a lot about curriculum and instruction this evening. Teacher evaluation with a year 2 focus on the student learning objectives. We'll continue that work this year and continue to look for ways to support our teachers to do the work they do. every day in the classroom with our students. Really looking at ways to continue to grow our collaborative practice. I mean, this is a real area of strength for ours. I think we do this as well as anybody. Very excited to look for new and innovative ways to expand that practice. I think those classroom visitations have a great deal of potential. One thing I didn't mention this evening that I should, we also expanded the number of meeting times our professional learning communities have this year, and so we were able to essentially double the number of opportunities PLCs have at Henry James to collaborate together, which is really very important. And so those two measures this year we have high expectations for. We think they're going to make a very positive impact on how we do business at the middle school. And again, most importantly, the belief that all students can achieve at high level. I think that's, at the end of the day, really at the center of all of this. How we support our students, how we support our teachers to support our students. That's really the essence of all the work we've been talking about this evening. So I think that's it.
That's it.
So we covered a lot. I mean, can I answer any questions?
Good. We'll open it up to the board for questions.
I
Great presentation.
think it was a good presentation.
Very,
Very
very,
helpful.
very good. Very
Well, thank you for
very
having me.
conclusive.
Glad to see that you've increased the PLCs. That's great. That'll be very helpful, I'm sure.
Great.
That gets down to the meat of it.
And we've talked about the class size a little bit, and I think it'll be important for me as we start to put together our presentation for other audiences, for the Board of Finance in particular, who always has quite a few questions, rightfully so, about declining enrollment and how that relates to staffing relationships and trying to draw a certain correlation of what that looks like. And last year during the process, we were very transparent with saying the first thing we need to do is take what we called appropriate reductions of FTE relative to enrollment. And we did that based on a planning mechanism. It worked in the majority of places. It didn't work here. And I think we need to demonstrate what that looks like numerically for people in terms of number of classes over the guideline as we move forward. I think it helps us to explain our story, because we won't have the ability this year with rollover of enrollment to take that initial blush of FTE. I mean, last year we were able to reduce, mathematically when we did it, 10 sections across the district from elementary, middle to high school. And the reality is, once you've adjusted the teams here at the middle school, even with a decline of 30 students or so next year, that will right size class size. There won't be reductions there, and the elementary enrollment has pretty much stabilized. So, it's just something to be mindful of, and we'll think of different ways to try to demonstrate that and articulate that maybe a little more effectively this time around. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a
I
good
have one
evening.
question. How
Yeah,
many people
Tara.
are using the learning centers? The support centers, the learning support centers that you started this year?
Sure. So, approximately, because I don't have the number in front of me, I want to say we have approximately 60 or so students. And so, in the way that works, so we have currently 2 tutors in there that are both on a part-time basis. We have a tutor who's there for literacy and writing. We also have a tutor in mathematics. And so that's a support that when we come together in our interdisciplinary teams, we make recommendations for students who would benefit from those supports, and then we do have some criteria that we use to make sure that's an appropriate measure.
This isn't a pilot. You're just going full bore. You're just making it happen. That's great.
Sure. Yeah. So
this is like we're doing it.
We're doing it. So we're in our second year with that, and looking to grow it. So
that's great.
Can kids,
Right.
is it similar at all to the high school? Like if a kid's struggling with a specific topic area, can they just kind of go down there during a study hall and get help, or?
So not exactly. I'm somewhat familiar with the high school model, where you may have maybe in science or social studies, where it's almost like a tutoring center where you can just kind of pop in on an as-needed basis. It's not quite like that. It's more programmatic. So the students who do receive services there, it's something they're enrolled in. They're scheduled for it. It's part of their day.
Okay.
But a teacher can see a kid struggling and make a recommendation for them to start going to that.
Absolutely.
program.
Absolutely.
So if you're not signed up from the beginning of the year, you can still benefit from it if you need it as the year goes on.
Sure. In fact, we have kids move in and out of it throughout the year, and that's really what it's intended to be. It's sort of that
That's good.
support as needed and as much as needed.
Great.
Great, very good. I think I'll take away, Brian, I always, after presentations, it's always something that I keep in my mind, 1 or 2 points that I can use when, I'm out and about and discussing with other colleagues around the state. And the one thing you had mentioned, the heart of success of your effort is with your instructional coaches. And I think that is a real credence and real kudos to this district, because we're very fortunate to have, instilled and brought in these instructional coaches and added them into our district, because this is unusual. Many districts are not able to or do not have that flexibility due to budget or due to district system situations that they don't have it. So that really is a testament to this district and to the work.
Sure, and it's it's just really proven to be an effective model for us at the middle school.
Mhm.
We've been very pleased with how that's worked.
Absolutely. So, and I think the following thing is just what you said about students in one area. Where is it? What does it mean to be a student at Henry James? The HJ way. I always have that little jingle in mind, the HJ way, and it is great because, when I had students that came to the door for Halloween and they were Henry James students, and they said they were Henry James, and it just came to my mind as I'm giving out candies. So,
to them, Lydia?
well, what are the? It's like Henry James, HJ way.
He's going to call on her house.
And they
must recite the 5 pillars together.
Well, what are the kids? It just.
I'm never going there.
You're never coming to my. It just
Almost
came
as
out.
toothbrushes.
It just came out. I said, so you're students when they're said, I said, oh, the HJ way. It just came out so fluid from.
They're there to have fun. They're not there to get grilled.
And one of the kids just said, you know about that? It was
Well, you
just classic.
got to give Aaron credit for the beginning of all that HJ way.
Yeah, it was.
Important. That's
It
where
really
came
is.
from.
It's
Been able to
classic.
sustain itself.
It really is. But it's
Very
great to
proud of
see
that.
the kids just open up and brighten when you just mention it, and it just resonates. So that's great. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
All right. We are now on to, after we leave the HJ way, we are now on to Exhibit 5, the 2015-2016 budget calendar. All righty, and Burke, you will lead us through this and the dates.
Our first look at it, the things on the top half of the sheet, generally we expect those dates to be staying. We have, after the staff and development portion in November, December, we start coming to you in January and February. There's a third meeting in February, noting that first week, February 3rd, we propose as a workshop meeting with basically following very similar to last year's schedule, which seemed to work well. The bottom section of this document, looking at some of the overall town timelines, those are definitely going to be subject to change. In fact, I had some conversations with town staff today in preparation for the Board of Finance meeting next week. And under the charter, that really does limit and prescribe time frames. So I would expect that we'll see some change to that. We have currently we're showing an estimated presentation March 10th to the Board of Finance. We would like to try to get that to not conflict with your Tuesday meeting night. So we're gonna, we've already kind of put that request out there. So hopefully when we come for a draft next week, we'll have already worked out some of those dates.
I'm glad to see that the public hearing is at a vacation week, because that happened last year.
Yeah, initial public hearing should be, I would expect will be before
April 7th.
vacation week.
22nd.
And I really don't expect that final public hearing, which really wasn't held last year. It ended up being a posted meeting, and then they ended up taking a vote, but it wasn't technically
It was just, it was
an
a date
additional
that was
public
in
hearing.
between.
That's really where the
That was
charter
when it was
gets
here.
most
Right.
difficult, where there's time frames where it's got to hit a certain window. So that's where I expect the most change. This is definitely very, very.
Is there any discussion of the 3 boards meeting to kind of have like an opening, let's see where we are discussion, or?
It's something that Matt and I have spoken about, and I think would certainly be helpful.
Yeah, we talked a little bit earlier in the week on that. Burke and I talk a little bit more tomorrow. I think it would be a good idea to have a discussion with Peter Askham about that. You know, we had talked about the idea of this 5-year planning, forward-looking committee to get together that had 3 board representation, and maybe it's an opportunity to pull boards together now, just go over some general parameters, some, get some questions, get some focus areas for them. So I'd be in support of that, but I want to talk to Burke a little bit about some more of the specifics around it.
I like that idea, Matt. I mean, whatever is going on with the subcommittee, I still think the 3-board meeting has a lot of value, and the earlier the better.
Right.
So I would encourage that instinct if that's the direction that you're going.
All right,
so.
very good.
The only comment I would add to that is I think the format of that meeting needs a little work.
Right.
Yeah.
Versus last year.
Yeah, it should be more discussion-based than any one.
It should be more roundtable.
Accepting presentation.
It needs to be roundtable, all.
Yep.
Did
Plus
we
the
have a
volunteers
meeting
sitting around
last
together
year?
talking.
It wasn't last year what
We
it
didn't
usually
have
is,
one
you're right.
last year.
Right, no, it was,
A couple years ago.
it was sort of a Board of Finance meeting at which we attended, and I don't
Right.
think that's in the spirit of what we're trying to create in a collaborative environment. So
Right.
I would recommend we do it in a roundtable.
It's been several years since we had a 3-board meeting where we did have more roundtable discussion.
I think
and
the
it was
3
in
board
this
would
room.
allow then for that presentation to flow differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll look
work on that.
Good, so we'll look forward to hearing something
Yep.
possibly in December. Okay. Very good. All right. We are now at the end of our information and reports. We are now on to our second public audience. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the board, you may do so, but seeing no one that is interested.
You're supposed to tell our new folks that it's mandatory. They have
What do you
to
guys think?
give us a
rip,
review.
Absolutely. So, yes, I'll pose that question to you. Thank you, Mike, for reminding me. So, we look forward to having you come back, right? All righty, and don't get too used to a short meeting. This happened to be a short meeting.
That's right.
Agenda. As we enter into budget season, and I know you're going to have that meeting schedule, by your desk at home. You don't even have a desk, but yeah, you'll have those dates. They may go
In their
a little
phones.
in their phone. You'll have those dates in your phone. They may go a little bit longer. So anyway, but thank you for attending this tonight. We really do appreciate it. So with that, our next meeting is Tuesday, December 9th. As you know, we canceled the meeting on November 25th. Thank you. And our next meeting will be Tuesday, December 9th, a regular meeting here in this conference room. And for those of you that weren't able to catch the meeting tonight live, you can find the rebroadcast on the education channels. Just click through and you'll find out. So with that, I'd like to thank SCTV once again for all their work that they have done and in taping the
We're having the
meeting.
steering committee meeting tomorrow
And,
for the McGowan.
Right.
oh, you are.
Right, we have about 10 folks,
Okay.
representative of teachers. Tara's agreed to sit on the steering committee.
Very good.
And we have PTO rep.
Very good.
Brooks on it with me, Scott Baker, a community member that we have that will participate.
Very
So we'll
good.
report back in December.
Yes, and looking forward to hearing from it, so very, very good. All right.
Do you have an update on the soccer game?
Unfortunately, we do.
They were defeated 1-0.
Oh,
Sorry, I didn't want to throw that out there and end on that note, but
Oh.
what a good season.
Yeah.
Great
that's great.
season.
That's great.
And a hard fought
And
game.
they've gone in a long time.
All right.
Success across sports this fall has been
Yeah.
great.
Very good.
Absolutely. Congratulations to the girls for getting this far
Right.
in the tournament, so very good. All right, with that, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Good evening and happy Thanksgiving.